I'm Tom, and welcome to Garage Brewing, Homebrew Wednesday number 3. Today, we're doing a couple of things. First thing first, we're making a 10-gallon batch of pale ale. Should be fairly straightforward. It's 22 pounds, about 10 kilograms of pale Maris otter. In the mash tun right now, it's about 150 degrees, 151 degrees. Been mashing perfectly for about 45 minutes so far. To that, we're going to add a couple of things. Only 2 hop additions this time. The first one are some Fuggle hops right out of our garden. Earlier this year, I got my hands on a single Fuggles hop rhizome, US Fuggle. We planted it back in May or so. It started out kind of slowly as a small, very tiny little plant. But after a few weeks, a few shoots started to grow. I got about 5 vines off of it, and so we ran some lines up to the top of the garage, and probably got about 6 or 7 vines growing off of it. I probably should have trimmed back most of them, as I should have promoted just one, I think. In retrospect, I've read that's a good idea. But I didn't do that because I didn't know what I was doing. So I ran enough lines for all of them, and they all took off fairly well. And then the last week or so, the last week of August, we managed to pull down about 500 or 600 grams, about 20 ounces, nope, that's not true, about 9 ounces of the Fuggles off the vines, which I thought was pretty good. It's a first year plant, so we got as much as we could. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to use them. My plan was to make a smash beer with this pale malt, but I don't think I have enough hops for that. And so I was wondering what I was going to pull out of the freezer. I've got a lot of dried hop pellets in there, but I didn't want to mix and match too much with the Fuggles because I really wanted to grow to brew a beer that came right from the garden with only one style of hops. But I was concerned that with only 8 or 9 ounces of Fuggles, especially when they're wet, once I dried them, they were going to be a fifth of that or a sixth of that, and I have no idea what the alpha acids are. I have no idea what the bittering was going to be like. But as luck would have it, the other day, walking to home from work, I passed a neighbor's yard, and their front yard was about half a city block long. Their entire lot was about an 8-foot high bush, solid wall of hop vines and plants. It must have been 4 feet thick, 6 feet high, more hops than I've ever seen at once. And I left a little note in the mailbox and asked if I could come by and pick some up, and sure enough, they replied and said, "Sure, come take as many as you want." And this is what I got. I got close to 20 ounces, about 600 grams of these giant, very fragrant, very mild. I'm not quite sure what they are. They seem to have contain a lot of lupulin. They seem to be healthy. They're browning just a little bit. They're a little papery. These ones are still a little bit green. But I still don't know what kind of hops they were. I don't know what how alpha acids might be. Wasn't quite sure how I'm going to use them. In fact, my mash has been in here for about 45 minutes, and I'm still not quite sure how I'm going to use them. What I've ended up with is about 130 grams, about 4 ounces or so of my Fuggles that I've been drying for about 2 or 3 days. So they've lost about half their moisture weight. I took about 10 ounces of the found hops, the wild hops, I don't know what they are, and I've been drying those for about a day, and they've lost about a third of their weight. So they're a little drier than they were, but not totally dry. And then I've also set aside about 10 ounces of, they're not quite wet, but they're not quite dry either, of the found hops. They smell pretty good. Then I'm going to add later on in the boil. So what I think I'm going to do is to avoid a really grassy flavor from the bittering hops, the whole 60-minute boil hops. I've been drying those for a few days, so hopefully they won't turn out too grassy. And Fuggles are pretty mild. They're very Cascade-like. So they should be earthy, a little bitter, but not overwhelmingly grassy. About halfway through, I'm going to add about half of the found hops, about 6 ounces or so. Then near closer to the end of the boil, maybe 10 minutes left, I'll add the other 8 or 10 ounces, that whatever these dry end up being by the time I'm done. I should probably weigh them, but I'm not going to. We'll boil that up for an hour, and we'll see what happens. Hi, I'm Tom, and welcome to Garage Brewing. I'll wait for the car to go by. How about that? Hi, I'm Tom, and welcome to Garage Brewing, Homebrew Wednesday number 3. Today, we're doing a couple of things. First thing, we're making a 10-gallon batch of pale ale. Should be fairly straightforward. I think it's going to be fairly straightforward. In the mash tun right now, what the hell was that? Squirrels are killing me.